Okay, so we are doing 6th grade math, and we are on day 1 of our math for summer school. So in day 1, we talk about how to work with integers and rational numbers when doing adding, subtracting, multiplying, or dividing. Okay, so let's start off with the rules of integers. So remember, when we're adding or subtracting integers, there's 2 rules to follow. Okay, rule number 1, if the signs are the same, you add and keep the sign. So if we had -2 plus -3, the signs are the same, so we add. 2 plus 3 is 5, and we keep the sign. The sign's negative. So -2 plus -3 equals -5. Okay? All right. Rule number 2 is, if the signs are different, we subtract and keep the sign of the bigger number. So let's say we had 2 plus -5. The signs here are different, so we're going to subtract. What is 5 minus 2? So when we say 5 minus 2, we get 3. Now we take the sign of the bigger number. So the invisible plus sign is here to show us that that is a positive 2. So what number is bigger, the number 2 or the number 5? The number 5 is, so we keep the negative. Okay, that's also called the absolute value. So we're going to take the highest absolute value and keep that sign. So positive 2 plus -5 gives us -3. Okay? All right, what about if we're multiplying or dividing? So if we're multiplying or dividing, right, we use our teddy bear. Okay, so let's say we had -2 times, remember we use the times dot, times 6. Okay, so we're going to cover up a negative, and we're going to cover up the positive. -2 times a positive 6 gives us a what kind of answer? What's left? A negative. So we know it's going to be a negative. So now we just do simply what is 2 times 6? That's 12. Okay, let's try -8 divided by -2. All right, so we have -8 divided by -2, so our answer has to be what? A positive. So we know it's going to be a positive. So we do 8 divided by 2 is what? 4. Okay? So now let's look at some examples. Okay, so you should have 6 questions on this first sheet. So it says, what is the sum of -2 and 7? So we know the word sum means to add. So we have -2 plus 7. Okay, if the signs are the same, we add and keep the sign. If the signs are different, we subtract and take the sign of the bigger number. So if we look here, are these signs the same? -2 and 7? No. So we have to subtract. 7 minus 2 equals 5. Now we take the sign of the bigger number, or the biggest absolute value. So what number is bigger, 2 or 7? 7. So that makes this number a what? Okay, and then you can pick your answer from here. Let's go down and let's look at number 5. Okay, so we have, well, what is the value of this expression? We have -3 in parentheses, and then right next to it we have 6 in parentheses. So what does it mean when there's 2 parentheses right next to each other? It means to multiply. So we have -3 times 6. Okay, so I'm going to draw my teddy bear because my teddy bear always helps me. So we have -3 times a positive 6. So my answer is going to be negative. So that's the first thing I'm going to do is fill in my negative here. Now, all we have to do is, what is 6 times 3? And you're going to bubble in your answer right here. All right? Let's look at the second part of this. Now, this is talking about different ways to solve rational numbers. So we know how to multiply with decimals and fractions. So let's look here. In order to multiply a fraction, I multiply straight across, but I have to turn a whole number into a fraction. How do I turn the number 30 into a fraction? What do I have to put under it? a 1. So I get 30 over 1. And then you simply multiply straight across. So for instance, 8 times 1 we know is 8. And then we have to do 5 times 30. Okay, so I have 30 times 5. 0 times 5 is 0. 5 times 3 is 15. So that's 150. Now I have to figure out how many times, right, 8 goes into 150. So some of you might remember Tybo. Okay, I'm going to write it up here at the top. Tybo. Okay, that means top, in, bottom, out. So that means I say 150 goes in the house and I'm dividing by 8. Top number goes in the house, bottom number goes outside the house. Okay, and then I solve. 8 can go into 1 0 times, so I put an X, right? 8 can go into 15 1 time, so above the 5, because I'm talking about 15, I put a 1. 1 times 8 is 8, and I subtract. 15 minus 8. Okay, and then you bring down your 0, so we get 70. So now how many times does 8 go into 70? Think about it. Okay, it's going to be 8 times. 8 times 8 is 64. And I subtract that. 70 minus 64 is 6. Okay? Because that was the end of my whole number, I'm going to take this, and this number now becomes my new numerator. Remember, numerator means the top number. My denominator stays the same. So what was my denominator here? 8. So it's 6 over 8. Okay? Now, 6 over 8 can be reduced by 2. So 6 divided by 2 is 3, and 8 divided by 2 is 4. Remember, to reduce the fraction, I have to divide the numerator and the denominator by the same number. So I would get 3/4. So we have 18 and 3/4, which looks like answer choice C. Okay? When we are multiplying decimals, for instance, we have, this one says, what is the product? Product means to multiply. Decimal 35 times 12. So we do 5 times 2, which is 10. I put a 0, carrying my 1. 3 times 2 is 6, plus 1 is 7. I add a 0. 5 times 1 is 5. 3 times 1 is 3. I add my numbers together. Get 0. 7 plus 5 is 12, carry my 1. 3 plus 1 is 4. Now I have to go back up here and count how many numbers are behind my decimal. So here's my decimal. I have 1, 2. So that means I have to have 2 numbers behind the decimal here. Okay, so that would be 4.20. 4.2, or 4 decimal 2. Okay, and you can solve the rest.